People are embracing Cain right now, letting it out without having all the fucking facts and knowing what's what. I left a message I put a message on Thunder Wizard's, one of his videos, and I'll read it to you in a few minutes. I'll put it on here, just the audio of me reading it to you, just so you can hear it. And, you know, comments are turned off. Okay, so it's not that one. Okay, so this is the comment I wrote to Thunder Wizard before, and this was his second last video, and then he made his newest video where he turned off the comments. But I wrote, if firefighters, because he talks about freedom fighters in this, that these people are freedom fighters, the people that went into the Capitol. So I wrote, if firefighters fight fires and crime fighters fight crime, then what are freedom fighters fighting? And obviously they're fighting our freedoms, right? Excellent video. Don't stop trying to help us deprogram. Even if many attack you personally, you are providing a valuable service. I'm only 34, and unless people like you from earlier years help younger generations know the way things used to be, we can't find our truth. We need wisdom from our elders, and I mean that with the utmost respect. I haven't always agreed with you or have the same beliefs, but I respect you and what you're doing. All right, so I added that in there simply just to elaborate on the point I was about to say. So when I say they didn't have all the facts, we are growing up in a time, and when I say we, I still mean us, like me. I'm 34, 4 kids, I'm still growing up, especially men. I won't get into that, but we are growing up in a time where, unless my mom, my dad, people like the Thunder Wizard, my mom and dad are, my dad's like a year away from 65, my mom 2 years away from 65. Thunder Wizard, I think in this video said he's pushing 60, right? So he's old enough to be my father, okay? But my parents don't tell me about this shit. They lived in Canada too, so it might be different. My mom's told me stories about how smoking was promoted when she was a kid. She smoked in the hospital for me, hence probably why I'm programmed to smoke. I grew up with smoking and non-smoking in restaurants. I grew up parents smoking at the table, you know what I mean? So it's not, I know it's wrong now, and I should, but it's deeply embedded in me, and that could be me making an excuse for my habit. That's definitely what it sounds like. I can kind of back away from myself and see where I'm programmed and know it's wrong, and still, I'm still doing it. So, I mean, far from perfect, but what it says on my shirt, far from perfect. But the point about that is we need more people to tell us how those times were, who aren't giving us propaganda, who aren't telling us things used to be like this that are inaccurate. How are we going to know what's accurate and inaccurate? Well, we need a bunch of different people like Thunder Wizard coming out and telling us the facts. What happened back then? What was going on in the 80s, in the 70s, the 60s? People who were alive and remember what happened in the 50s, 60s are probably no longer with us. So all we have are the people that can tell us what happened in the 70s, the late 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, I was alive in the 90s. I remember some of the 90s, but I was a child in the 90s. So when I become in my 50s or 60s, I'll be able to tell people how the late 90s, early 2000s were. This is going to be 9/11 shit. This is going to be the war shit. This is going to be before cell phone and computer shit that I'm going to be able to know. But right now, I don't have the slightest idea of what happened. I was born in 86. So I don't know what happened. I was an 80s baby, but I don't, like the late 80s, you know? So I can't know what happened. These people saying we're oppressed when there was probably laws made back in these years that we have no idea that allowed them to go on Capitol Hill or Capitol, whatever. I don't even know if it's Capitol Hill or wherever the fuck they are. I don't even know what the capital is. Like, I know the capital of the United States is Washington, D.C., but Capitol building is different than the White House, and I think it's that one with the big fucking monument in front, but I don't know. I could be completely wrong as well. So, point is, we need to know why the people who went there with guns, and not the people that broke into the Capitol, but the militia that's taken over right now, and the free press, the media, news outlets, and social media and YouTube are saying that right now, Washington is a militia-controlled state right now. That's what it's saying. And we all know the story about Washington and the Vatican and, is it England? That are all their own states, like their own country within that city. So it's controlled by a militia right now. Just free protest, whatever, which is cool. They have the right to protest. The government is allowing them. They don't have to. And they are, because they don't want to infringe on their rights. So it seems very hypocritical and ignorant for these people to be saying that. And I'm all for people standing up for their rights. I really, truly am. I love seeing that. But once these people are educated on how much rights they have, I hope that they do the right thing and don't just follow their programming and victim mindset, and they actually decide to make a good decision. I just hope that's what happens here. I hope no other lives are caused, because I think we live in a great time where a lot of things and a lot of people fought for our rights, and I don't want to see any of those people go down in vain, having fought for our freedoms.
It can go to hell. With that, he encounters Satan in the wilderness and falls prey to his temptations. And he does what he can, in John Milton's unforgettable words, to confound the race of mankind in the first root and mingle and involve earth with hell, done all to spite the great Creator. He turns to evil to obtain what good forbade him, and he does it voluntarily, self-consciously, and with malice. Let him who has ears hear. So that's the first two human beings. The resentful, bitter failure taking an axe to the admirable success.
My ex-friend Justin, by watching and doing drugs and watching Conspiracy nonstop, decided to villainize me because I wouldn't stop doing magic, even though he wanted to keep warning me this stuff is from the devil, and he wanted to keep telling me the earth was flat, and and I just disagreed with him. We really disagree, man. I don't care what you believe. I believe what I believe. We don't have to stop being friends because that was always my point of view. And he found a way to demonize me, even though maybe his wife believed and did the things I promoted. Maybe he did and found that there was truth, and he needed to find a way to villainize me, and he did by saying I'm sleeping with his wife, which I haven't been. And so now he's taken the symbolic axe to his own ideal. Me, the success, him, the bitter fucking failure.
There's no going back from that, man. Like, good luck forgiving yourself for that, especially if he was an ideal, especially if he was your ideal, because you haven't just killed your brother and, of course, tortured your parents and the rest of your family. You've deprived the community of someone who is upstanding, and you did it for the worst possible motivations. It's like there's no up from there, right? That's as close to hell as you can manage on earth, I would say. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. That too is like, there's also no turning back to God, let's say, after an error like that, because, well, you've done everything you possibly could to spite God, assuming he exists, and the probability that you're going to be able to mend that relationship in your now broken state, when you couldn't mend it to begin with before you did something so terrible, starts to move towards zero.
See, this is why I seriously love Peterson. There's so many levels to this shit, the way he breaks down. Like, once again, strip away the religious stuff. Don't say, fuck, he's doing this Bible shit again. Like, Corey's going through the Bible. It's like, I'm going through a story to teach a lesson here. So if you listen to that video, the second last or the third last one, the Thunder Wizard, where you hear the audio from the woman who's a real estate agent who wants a pardon from all her crimes that she committed for following her president. What she does, she's got a fucking point. I mean, she followed her president. She was mind-fucked and misled. And now she wants her government to pardon her, even though it's the same people that she was actively on the side of threatening their lives to keep Trump into power. She wants them. So, I mean, I see this in exactly what Peterson's saying. It's like, now you want God to forgive you? You want the government to pardon you after you wanted to threaten politicians because you were somehow misled? Like, really? That's let those who be fooled, let he who will be fooled, be fooled. You know, you were fooled. You're a fucking fool. A lot of people were fucking fools, and now they're butthurt about the fact that they were fooled. And I get being a militia and having a gun and going to stand there being like, okay, this politician Trump mind fucked us to the point where people are being charged, having to go to jail. So I want to be heard. I want to know what's true and what's not true. That I can understand. That I can get behind. Why they're at Parliament, if that's the reason. If it's not just to flaunt their power or just to get Trump back into office, fuck all that shit. If it's to say there's too much double-sided media here meant to confuse us, the population, to the point where we're getting mind-fucked and people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. If that's what those people are standing for, then I'm behind it. And I will even back them up. And if I could go to the States, I'd go down there myself, but I'm not allowed in the States. Criminal record. But that I can get behind. If it's to say we need the old rules back, or people need to fact check and tell us where they got their facts, and we got to stop having maybe scientists instead of using instead of just posting what they found on Facebook and people running with it as new science. It had to be peer reviewed and, you know, tested and showed the results of it, so we don't just follow along with scientists that are, or maybe even fake scientists trying to say the world's flat, or whatever the case is, you know what I mean? So if that's what they're fighting for, then I'm all for that. Getting some new rules and structure into the mix, so people aren't so easily mind-fucked and brought to conspiracy, because I understand in this day and age how so many people can get stuck in the conspiracy mindset. Just in my province alone, my premier, Doug Ford of Ontario, saying the fight against COVID, all this. Yet he just kicked a minister or somebody out of his, who was part of his party, who said the fight against coronavirus, the self-isolation and the mask wearing and all this stuff. This is another politician said on social media that it's doing more harm than coronaviruses, that the people die from coronavirus is like less than 1%. The rate of people beating coronavirus is even more than that. So I had the Premier of Ontario saying that this is serious. Everybody stay indoors. We're in a lockdown. And we have somebody else, part of his party, saying it's not that serious. This is bullshit. And then Doug just fired that guy or kicked him off or whatever the fuck he's from. Within my own Ontario fucking government system. And then people see this and they say, holy fuck, how can the people from the same party be on both opposite sides? Conspiracy. From there, they go check out other conspiracies. And conspiracy really does attack that endorphin part of the mind. You get a little high when you watch this shit. So it's very appealing to people. So I understand it, but it's fucking shit up. And it needs to end. So if that's what those people are fighting for, I'm all for that. But if it's for stupidity, no. No more lives need to be taken because some people are just butthurt. None of that. That's not. All right, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep playing a little bit of Peterson. I'm going to switch gears. This is going to be prior to what you just saw. I'm going to watch it in reverse a little bit. Not obviously in reverse, but there's this really funny part where he talks about how you can run a really shitty diner. And I love it. It's hilarious. I want to play that part for you. And a few little more crucial parts, and I'll interject as I think it's relevant to conspiracy, to your ideals. If you are demonizing people in society that have done well and helped society, then you are going to harm yourself and not allow yourself to advance to their level of success. So anything that has to do with that, I'm going to keep chiming in on, because I think that's one of the main points of the story of Cain and Abel. It's not about the first two people being one being a murderer, which, you know, is true. I mean, it's a psychological story. We both have Cain and Abel in us. Some people are more Abel, some people are more Cain, but you got both within you. You know, you got Hitler and fucking whoever. You got Stalin and whoever. You got both polarities within you, negative and positive. We know this, especially us in hermetics and in magic. We have both polarities within us. You know, you embrace both sides. When you open the channels to the positive and the negative polarity, they combine to make their own state, which most people can't understand unless they're in that state. And so they'll say stuff like, we don't understand why people are just neutral and all these things, and say this stuff. It's like, well, because you don't have that polarity yet. You don't have that new polarity when the positive and the negative mix together to make its own electricity, its own electrical current. You simply don't have that yet, so how could you understand it? But once you do, you will. So when it comes to conspiracy, killing your own ideal, conspiracy mindset, victim mindset, and how to beat it and all that, I'll keep chiming in. If not, I'll probably just play another 10 minutes or so.
It's like I told you that the Mesopotamians thought that mankind was made out of the blood of the worst demon that the great goddess of chaos could imagine. Well, the first human being is a murderer, and not only a murderer of his own brother. And so, Old Testament, that's a hell of a harsh book. And you might think, well, maybe that's a little bit too much to bear. And then you might think, yeah, and maybe it's true too. So that's something to think about. I mean, human beings, they're amazing creatures. And to think about us as a plague on the planet is its own kind of bloody catastrophe, malevolent, low, quasi-genocidal metaphor. But that doesn't mean that we're not without our problems. And the fact that this book that sits at the cornerstone of our culture would present the first man as a murderer of his brother is something that should really set you back on your heels. And again, she bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. There you see a very old representation. There's Abel there, and he's got his sheep up on the altar, and Cain is bringing a sheaf of wheat. And I don't know exactly what's happening here with the blood, or it's a ray, perhaps, it's something like that. But the overall impression of the image is that something transcendent is communicating with this sacrifice. And you see, you think, oh, how primitive, how primitive these people were sacrificing to their gods.
Oh, shit, my bad. I sacrifice to my gods all the time. And there it is. First story in the Old Testament. Now, we know the Old Testament is most likely a Canaanite religion and Canaanite gods that were taken and turned into just one god. But the stories are most likely from Canaanite religion, spirituality, whatever you want to call it. Therefore, Cain and Abel, Canaanites, Cain, right? Got it? Cain and Abel are probably sacrificing to the Canaanite gods. So, but even before I get anything else, okay, when people want to look at this as, fucking Bible shit, I don't believe in the Bible. It's like, Bible is just turned monotheistic, in my opinion. The Bible is older traditions and what they used to do changed into a newer tradition. So this is why there's so much sacrifice and offerings and God, whatever, animals, whatever. Fucking King Solomon, for God's sake, was a magician. 3 wise men came to Jesus. Like, there's so much magic in it. It's incredible. Read between the lines. It's like they don't want to come out and tell us that. But it's like, it's made for the masses, the opiate for the masses, the fucking religion for the masses. So if no one knows what to believe, well, it'd be very hard to live without a belief. So here's a book, believe in it. You got nothing else, but you should come up with your own shit. That's my opinion. I think it's right, obviously, because it's my opinion. But before anything else, sacrifice is the hypothesis, as he's going to say, and it's a hell of a hypothesis. Whether it's a sacrifice we make today for our children, for a better life, or it's literally my candle on my altar upstairs. that I have a symbolic representation on it. I offered the incense, the candle, and the oil, and all that to the God of the week for whatever I want in return. Whatever it is, it works. It absolutely works, positively. And you learn it from all the traditions. And even in the Bible, they talk about sacrifice. So you can learn how to sacrifice by reading the fucking Bible. Abel's the way to do it. Cain is not the way to do it.
You know, those people weren't stupid. And this is not primitive. Whatever it is, it's not primitive. It's sophisticated beyond belief, because the idea, as I already pointed out, is that you could sacrifice something of value and that would have transcendent utility. And that is by no means an unsophisticated idea. In fact, it might be the greatest idea that human beings ever came up with. It's an answer to the problem that's put forward in the story of Adam and Eve, right? Because we became self-conscious, and then we discovered the future, and then we knew we were going to die, and then we knew we were vulnerable, and then we became ashamed, and then we developed the knowledge of good and evil, and then we got thrown out of paradise. It's like, that's a big problem. So what the hell are you going to do about it? Well, sacrifice. That's the hypothesis. Well, that's a hell of a hypothesis, man. That's what we're doing. You made plenty of sacrifices, even to sit in this theater, and many people made plenty of sacrifices to have a theater like this exist, and many people made sacrifices so that we could actually freely engage in the dialogue that we're engaging in a theater like this.
And right there, what he just said is what Thunder Wizard also said. So somebody who believes in the Bible versus a shaman who doesn't believe in the Bible, both roughly around the same age, both have the same opinion about the youth and today, and people not being grateful and always, shitting on people who are elites and all this. Thunder Wizard says it in a different way, but it's like there's no elites out there doing this to you. This was put in your head by whoever. Now, Thunder Wizard offers a new conspiracy for people, which is not a new conspiracy. It's an old conspiracy. And as far as I can tell, there's fucking something to it. But in the same sense, he's talking about how the people went to Capitol Hill and got a permit by their government to walk around with fucking, I don't know if they're automatic rifles or just rifles and sidearms, but with fucking guns, walk around and protest freely and stand in front of a bunch of fucking cameras, being heard, saying, I feel like I'm not heard. And what did Peterson just fucking say in this fucking clip? Like, holy fuck, a lot of people sacrifice just for you to be able to sit in here and have this debate. They sacrifice to make this. They sacrifice for you to be alive today. We need to be goddamn more fucking grateful for what we have, instead of being little fucking victim bitches, always bitching about what's wrong with our life. Like, let's grow the fuck up, all of us. 20-year-olds, or 30-year-olds, or 40-year-olds, whoever thinks that it's being done to us. Let's grow the fuck up. It's time. It's time to realize how fucking lucky we are, and that we're not fucking in trouble, and we're not fucking cursed, and there's no fucking devil and all this demon bullshit. Time to give all that fucking shit up, and let's make this world a better fucking place, finally. Because people have been trying for so long. We've lost people along the way who's tried and died for fucking what they believe in. And I'm not saying that people at Capitol don't believe in what they're fucking doing, but they're confused. Maybe it's not their fault entirely. But if I was able to come into this knowledge being 34 and know that I don't know everything, but I'm trying to actively learn, then what the hell is wrong with the other people? How come they can't do it? Right? There's got to be a way they can. If I can do it, they can fucking do it.
And so it's like all of this is built on sacrifice, and sacrifice bloody well better work, because we do not have a better idea. Sacrifice, what's the counter position? Murder and theft. So let's go with sacrifice, shall we? And perhaps we won't consider it so damn primitive, because it's not so primitive. And again, she bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. Now, some people have read into this the eternal battle between herdsmen and agriculturalists, which raged in the American West, for example, because the herdsmen like to have their herds, sheep, cattle, go wherever they were going to go. And of course, the agriculturists, the farmers, like to have things fenced off. And the agriculturalists actually won in the final analysis. But anyways, Abel is a keeper of sheep. And that's interesting because that makes him a shepherd. And I think that's part of the critical issue here, because a shepherd, we talked a little bit about shepherds before. You know, if you look at Michelangelo's statue of David, which is another staggering work, I mean, that David, he's no trivial figure. And of course, it's David who slays Goliath, right? And Goliath is like the giant of the patriarchal enemy. It's something like that. And, you know, Middle Eastern shepherds, they had to take care of sheep, and they're edible, and the lambs are very vulnerable. And there were lots of wild animals around. It wasn't like England in the 16th century. It was like there were lions, you know, and you had a slingshot or a stick or some damn thing, and so your job was to keep the sheep organized and not let them be eaten by the lions alone. And so you had to have a clue and be tough and self-reliant and all of those things. You had to be tough and self-reliant. You had to be able to take care of a lot of vulnerable things. You had to be able to do it on your own. And so that's all built into the shepherd metaphor. And it's, you know, it's a tough thing it's not a great metaphor for modern people, because we tend to think of the shepherd as someone like little Lord Fauntleroy, you know, like some little certainly not a lion-killing, hyper-masculine, lion-killing, you know, monster. That's not a shepherd. A shepherd sort of dances around, and, you know, that's not the metaphor here. That's not the metaphor here. So Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. Okay, so he's participating in this sacrificial ritual. And Abel, he brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. God is just liking you a little better than he's liking him. And that's, I think, useful from a literary perspective, because there is that arbitrariness about life. You know, with my own children, for example, one of them has had, I would say, things come easy to him. He's lucky, fortunate, however you want to put it. He seems to be that sort of person. Whereas my other child is like, it's just like one horrible Job-like catastrophe after another. And it's so strange to see that, because as far as I can tell, the characterological differences are certainly not accounting for the difference in destiny. You know, the one child who's had so much trouble, I mean, as a child, was just a wonderful child. So amazingly happy and easy to get along with and fun. And had a terrible time of it. So, who knows what God's up to? But distributing fate equally certainly isn't one of them. And the Lord, because you think about how human that story is, you know, you're out there. Well, we could say you might be a useless character, and, you know, you're whining about how catastrophic your life is, and it's pretty much obvious to everyone around you and you that it's your fault. You just don't try. You don't wake up in the morning. You don't get a job. You don't.
I went quite a while there without fucking chiming in, so that's pretty good. Anyways, now he's getting into useless people. And I was one of those. I was one who was whining when I was at Matrix, and thus after, when I was into fear-based media. And then even when I got into the opposite extreme, I went to fear-based media, believed in satanic elite Illuminati groups. And then I went all the way to the other polarity. Once again, like I already stated, the extremes of both political parties are the problem. But the ones that are in the middle, it's like this big fucking thermometer. You're minus, you know, your -2 isn't bad. It's like your +2 isn't bad. But when it's fucking plus fucking 30 something with a humidity that's crazy, or it's -30 something and the wind chill is crazy, well, that's extreme. Well, that's kind of how political is and spirituality can be. The people in the extremes are fucked. People in the middle that can kind of, you know, meet other people halfway because they're not so fucking polarized. Well, that's okay. Anyways, I went from one extreme to the next. And that was useful. And I needed to. But at those times, I was that useless character he's fucking talking about. That I'm going to refer to as my ex-friend Justin is now. Not waking up on time, pissing his life away, not raising his daughter how he should, not being nice to probably his girlfriend or wife, and she probably has not been nice to him. I mean, I've heard some stories both ways, though. But, nonetheless, they're not doing so well, especially Justin. He's not doing anything but drugs and conspiracy and wants more curb money and living off the system when he's willing and able to work. So, and he's going to sit there complaining about the elite groups that are fucking him up. This way he's got an excuse to sit there on welfare, not get a job, and not try to better his life. It's just easier just to blame people for what they're doing to him. It's not his fault. He's just another victim. It's like, no, grow up. You've been into the fucking fear-based shit for a while now. Kind of move to the other side. And you don't have to come the same route as me. Find your own path. I don't care, but get out of that crap, man. It's about time. But that's what he's talking about here, is people like that. And on some level, they damn well know that they're part of the fucking problem. Most people know that they're part of that problem when they're in that situation.
Engage in things. You're cynical and you're bitter and you're angry, and you don't try to help the people near you, and you don't try to fix up your own life, and you don't take care of yourself, and and then things go wrong, and it's like, well, really, what do you expect? But that doesn't mean someone in that situation will just say, well, that's okay, I deserve it, and they'll be happy about it. They won't. They'll be absolutely bitter about it and angry. But, put that aside for a moment. There are people who seem to struggle very forthrightly, let's say, and still have one catastrophe after another happen to them. And so there's no easy answer in this story. It's like you can fall afoul of God because your sacrifices are second rate, or you can just fall afoul of God and you don't know why. Well, tough luck for you. And then what happens in either case is exactly this, almost inevitably. Cain was wroth and his countenance fell. You have to admire Hitler. That's the thing. Because he was an organizational genius. The thing that doesn't stop people from being Hitler, people don't refuse the ambition to become Hitler because they don't have the genocidal motivation. They don't follow that pathway because they don't have the organizational genius. They've got the damn motivation. And if you take 100 people randomly and you talk to them, and you really talk to them, you'll find that 5% of them would take their vengeful thoughts pretty damn far if they were just given the opportunity. And in fact, they do, because they make life miserable for themselves and often for their family, and sometimes for anybody they can come near.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely poetic. This video completely explains, everything that I'm talking about. He just said it. My friend Justin lacks the organizational genius, but he's taken his Hitler-like fantasies, his dark shit, and fucking up his own life. And when that's not enough, he's trying to infect my life with his own fantasies of fucking whatever and trying to fuck myself up. Even Josie, the first message she sent me with, I'm kind of straightening this out with your wife. It's like, get the fuck out of my life. Talk to your husband. He's the fucking problem. Now, she didn't know that, so I get that. But still, it's like, where's the proof? Did he show you any proof? Why are you going to come to my house whenever you just got his word? If I would have admitted to something, do you not think he would have at least recorded it? Or if it was a text message and I happened to do the proof, I deleted it by accident. Come on. But anyways, point is, he's saying it. He's trying to affect other people's lives. When people are miserable, they want everybody else to be miserable. And when someone, especially someone similar, especially someone who is an ideal, especially someone who might have been in their place before, when they start doing better, they fucking hate it. Because it's proof to them that they could be better. And they don't want that. They want to sit in their ignorance and their vile fucking way of mistreating people and blaming and victim and scarcity mindsets. And they just want to infect everybody with that around them.
And they fucking hate when anybody does anything fucking good, because then they can't fucking blame God and fucking blame society and fucking blame the government and fucking blame reptilians and fucking aliens and all that shit. When really all they're doing is just trying to pass the blame on everything else but themselves. It's fucking pathetic.
And then maybe another 20% of people have that bubble up in them on a pretty damn regular basis. So, you know, you can have some sympathy for Cain. If you don't have any sympathy for Cain, then you're not. See, Cain and Abel also, they don't just represent two archetypal types of being. They represent. So it's not like you're Cain and you're Abel and you're Cain and you're Abel. It's like you're half and half and you're half and half and you're half and half. It's something like this. This is two different potential patterns of destiny, and you don't manifest one purely and the other zero. It's like it's like the line between good and evil that runs down the human heart. It's exactly the same idea. And maybe you're more like Cain or maybe you're more like Abel, but there's still a little Cain in you no matter how able you are. And maybe more than a little. And probably more than a little. And if you watch your fantasies, which I would very much recommend, you'll find that they show you dark things about you that will shock you if you allow yourself to be conscious of what you're thinking. So it's a good time when you're having an argument with someone, especially someone that you love, to just watch the pictures that flash in the back of your mind. That's part of, let's say, coming into contact with what Carl-Jung called the shadow. And the shadow is the manifestation of Cain.
This is great information here, by the way. So people want to know about the shadow side, and they'll fucking YouTube
Shadow work and all this, and get a bunch of spiritual people regurgitating the same information. Yeah, you put on some motherfucker talking about the Bible, some Harvard professor from Canada, and he'll tell you. You want to come in contact with your shadow, you want to know what your shadow's trying to relate to you when you're having an argument with somebody. Try to be conscious of the thoughts coming to your head, the pictures coming to your mind. So when I was having that argument with Josie on the phone, and I was texting Justin, and I could literally see my axe going through his face, as bad as that sounds, I was conscious of that. Even more than that, I threatened him with it. Now, was it because I was actually going to do it? Who knows? Maybe when he got here, I'd totally bitch out. Maybe I can't. Maybe taking my dog's life because she was my responsibility was easier than taking a human life. Maybe. Who knows? I was pretty angry. I was pretty Cain-like in that moment. But I was more like Abel, pissed off at Cain, getting revenge in reverse. Like, you're not killing me this time, Cain. I'm fucking killing you, but I'm never going down your path again, even though two wrongs don't necessarily make a right either. But this is a great exercise to do. And then he goes into thinking that, why would you think your thoughts are your own? You don't pick your damn dreams, yet they're coming from your own mind. So why would you think your thoughts you get to pick, or you have any choice in them? And that is such good advice, or such good knowledge to fucking know. And this is the whole basis of reject, banish, deny. Because if you can't pick your dreams, and you can't deny your dreams, we can wake up, maybe if you become conscious in your dream somehow, and it's like, holy fuck, it's a dream, and then boom, you wake up, which happens to me very often. I can take control of my dream for a bit, but anytime I try to do anything radical, try to get something to manifest by doing dream magic or whatever the case is, I tend to wake up. So, but nonetheless, it's practicing a unconscious state of being conscious within it, so I'm trying. But if you can't pick your dreams and you can't banish or reject your dreams, well, your thoughts you can. And if these thoughts aren't necessarily coming from you, yet they're coming from you, but they're coming from the part of you, that reality maker. So every thought you get of you being poor, if you reject it, then there's a good chance you won't be poor, because it's coming from that reality maker within you. I like using that word for some reason. The subconscious mind, the unconscious, whatever you want to call it. The thing that's giving you all these ideas like, hey, you're going to be rich one day. Yeah, accept that. No, you're going to be poor one day, It's like Cain and Abel fighting in you. It's like, no, you're never going to be rich. And people let that Cain take over within them. Like my buddy's letting that Cain take over. He wants to kill me because I'm fucking his wife and I'm successful and I'm everything he's not. And he's going to find a fucking reason to destroy me. And I'm going to stand up for myself and say, fuck you, buddy. You ain't winning this Cain and Abel fight against me, asshole, buddy. But nonetheless, the Cain and Abel battle within you, or the demon and angel battle within you. The demon, if you will, let's say the demon's the bad guy, or for you it might be the good guy, the angel might be the bad guy. I don't know, and I'm okay with whatever you pick. But one of those is bad, one of those is good. And the one inside of you is saying you're always going to be poor. You banish that. The one that says you're always going to be rich, you accept that, and maybe that creates your reality for you. And at the very least, you're going to have healthy self-talk and have a positive self-image. And at the very least, to start up spiraling and having positive thoughts more often. At the very least, at the very most, like I said, I was able to use that technique to stop the rain that was supposed to happen all day. In fact, the weather that day said rain all fucking day, yet the sun came out. But I was able to finish my chainsawing on my tree. So, be make that as you will, but yeah, this part's pretty important. And I'm not too much more after this. I think I'm going to play the one part with the diner, and then I'm going to play the beginning where someone wrote him a note saying something pretty cool, but I won't even comment on that. I'll just let it play out. So yeah, this will probably be the last time I chime in on this unless there's something really, really dire. So anyways, if I don't come back on, I appreciate everybody who watched, and hopefully you got the message. And yeah, have yourself a great fucking day.
It's a perfect way of thinking about it. And one of the things that Jung said about the shadow, because Jung was not someone you mess around with lightly. He said the human shadow has roots that reach all the way to hell. And Jung meant that. That's no metaphor for him. Now, he might not have meant it in the same way that a fundamentalist Christian from the southern U.S. For him. Now, he might not have meant it in the same way that a fundamentalist Christian from the southern U.S. might mean it. But I would say that Jung meant it in a way that's far more terrifying and also far more true. So, let's say that you have an impulse to make a sacrifice. You think, well, I should change this about my life. Well, it's like, where does that come from, that impulse? It's just it manifests itself out of nothing. So, or you came up with it. Well, you might want to stop thinking about that, thinking so surely that you come up with your own thoughts. You don't come up with your damn dreams, do you? They just happen. And God only knows where they come from. They come from your brain. Oh boy, that's a sophisticated answer. They come from your unconscious. Well, that's not much better. At least it's somewhat better. But there are those amazing dramas take place in the theater of your imagination at night. You don't even understand what they are, and yet they occur night after night. And those things, dreams, they can contain wisdom that it just staggers the person who has the dream once they get the key to the dream, once they remember it. It's like, oh, look, you just revealed a bunch of wisdom to yourself that you didn't know. Well, where'd that come from? Well, you don't know. How in the world can you dream up things that you don't know? That's a tough one. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point in this lecture series, because there are some reasonable things that can be said about that. But, the idea that there's something that's not you. Jung would call it the self. Carl-Jung would call it the self, which he thought of as the totality of your being across time and space. It's something like that. And that, each second that you exist is a slice of the self manifesting itself across time and space. And he thought of the self as partly the voice of conscience, whatever that is, that helps guide you when you have to make a difficult decision. And a difficult decision might be, well, what do I need to sacrifice? How do I need to discipline myself, right? What do I need to forego? Well, how do you figure those things out? Well, this picture is trying to put forth the idea that perhaps if you had established the proper relationship with God the Father, and we've talked about what that might mean, then he would help figure out how to get the sacrificial fires burning so that you could stay in a proper relationship with him across time. Well, if that's such an unreasonable proposition, what's the alternative proposition? Well, this isn't working out very well. That's for sure. Diner that he happened to visit, Bukowski happened to visit when he was on a bus when he was a kid. a diner where everything was going well. And you could listen to that. It's great. I think it's great. But this is the opposite diner I'm thinking about. So you go into a diner, right? It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and you order some bacon and eggs and some toast. And then you look around in the diner and you think, it was like 1975 when the windows were last washed, and there's this kind of thick coating of who gives a damn grease on the walls, you know, and the floor too has got that sort of stickiness that you really have to work at to develop over years, you know. And the waitress she's not happy to be there, and the guy behind the counter isn't happy that happens to be the waitress that he's working with. And then, you know, you walk down the stairs maybe to the washroom, and that's its own little trip. And so you come back and you order your damn eggs and you order your toast and you order your bacon, and then it comes and like the eggs are too cooked on the bottom, so they're kind of brown, and then they're kind of raw on top, and they're cold in the middle, which is, you really have to work to cook an egg like that, man. But you can master that with like 10 years of bitterness. You teach you how to cook an egg like that. And then the toast, here's what you do with the toast, right? You take the white bread, you know, the pre-sliced stuff that no one should ever eat. And then you put that in the toaster and you overcook it. And then you wait, and then you pop it out of the toaster. And then because it's overcooked, you scrape it off. And you knock off the crumbs so it doesn't look too burnt, and then you wait till it's cold, and then you put cold margarine on it, because if you put cold margarine, first of all, not butter, but if you put cold margarine on, you can also kind of tear holes in it so that then it has lumps of margarine in it, and it's really dry except where it's too greasy. So that's like its own little work of art, man. And then you put that on the side with the eggs, and then you have the potatoes, and this is how you cook the potatoes properly. You know, so they're leftover potatoes, and you keep dumping new leftover potatoes into the old leftover potatoes over weeks, and so some of the potatoes they're no longer potatoes, right? They've half returned to Mother Earth. Then you flap them on the grill, and you sort of, I don't know, you burn them a bit, I guess, and then you slap them on the plate, and Jesus, you don't want to eat those, man. That's for sure, and that's the point. And then you have the bacon, and you want to make sure you buy the lowest possible quality bacon. That's how you start. And then you throw it on the grill, and your grill has to be overheated to do this. You have to cook the bacon so that it's raw in places and burnt in other places, and it has that delightful pig-like odor that only really cheap, badly cooked bacon can provide. Or maybe you use those little breakfast sausages that no one in their bloody right mind would let within 15 feet of anything living, you know. And then you serve that, right? And you serve it with the kind of orange juice that is only orange in color. And with coffee that's, what would you say? It was started too early in the morning. That's the first thing. Bad quality coffee started too early in the morning, got cold once or twice, and has been reheated. And then you serve that with whitener. It's like, here's your breakfast. It's like, no, man, that's not breakfast. That's hell. You know? And you created it. And then what you do, if you have a diner like that, is because you have a miserable life if you have a diner like that, and you've really worked on achieving that, is every night you go home and you curse your wife and you curse your kids, and you fucking well curse God too for producing a universe where a diner like yours is allowed to exist. And that's your bloody life. So, also that's what God's trying to point out here is, so I'm going to read you something. I get a lot of mail, and I don't know where I got this. I've been a lot of different places in the last week, and this showed up at one of them, and I'm going to read it to you. I have no idea what to make of it.
Lock it. Well, then don't fucking.
It's written in a female hand. So that's about all I can tell, but there's no address or name on it. This isn't a question, but a comment, or more accurately, perhaps, a message. I spent this past weekend in an ayahuasca ceremony, which for those of you who don't know is a South American visionary plant medicine. Some of you may roll your eyes at this, but ayahuasca brings you into direct contact with the archetypal realm of being. Users of this medicine, initiates I should say, refer to ayahuasca as she, because the spirit of the plant is decidedly feminine. An encounter with ayahuasca is an encounter with the great mother of creation, the goddess, the void from which all things come, the feminine counterpart of Logos. Dr. Peterson, you appeared in one of my ayahuasca visions. Might account for why I've been rather fatigued lately. Dr. Peterson, you appeared in one of my ayahuasca visions, and I asked her, who is Jordan Peterson? What is he doing? Which is something I'd really like to know as well. And she responded with crystalline clarity.
I'll be up here.
Quote, "Here, he is here to invoke and initiate the divine masculine principle on earth at this time." So I'm up here to thank you deeply and profoundly on behalf of the Great Mother herself, the goddess, the divine feminine principle, who has been eagerly awaiting the awakening of the masculine principle into divinity and service. So, you don't get a letter like that every day. Actually, I get a letter or two like that every day. So,